Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I'm excited to show you how to use this light ribbon display system I developed for Roblox. This lets you display animated graphics like the ones you're seeing, and it's super easy to use. I made a simpler version of this a while back and it gained a decent amount of traction on Twitter, and a lot of people were interested in how I did this, so I decided to make this better version that's more user-friendly. You won't need much programming experience since it's pretty much plug and play, and designed it to be modular so you can tailor it to your own needs. Let's get right into it. The first thing you'll want to do is add the light ribbon to your inventory. I'll put a link to the model in the description, so you'll just click that and click add to inventory, and then it should end up in your toolbox right here. If you don't have the toolbox, you can click this button right here to get it, and then you'll click on light ribbon to import it into the workspace. You'll have to click OK right here. This is just asking you if you want to import the model because it has scripts. And the scripts in this model are just to make the light ribbon work. So you'll click OK to that to get the light ribbon. I'm going to move this up a little bit and back. And there are two things that we need to do to get it to work. So the first is to ungroup this model that says ungroup me. And then the second is we want to take this light ribbon scripts folder and put it into the starter player scripts folder right here. So I'll just drag that over. And then it should work once you run the game. There we go. As you can see, we have the text scrolling across the screen. It says Araketo360. Most likely you don't want it to say this because you're not me. And so I'm going to show you how to change that. I'll go ahead and stop the game. First, I'm going to just delete this README file since we don't need it. And then I'm going to open this folder that has the light ribbon scripts in it. There are two different folders right here. There's one that's called frames and one that's called content. Frames are basically different ways of manipulating content. So right now I just have one type of frame, the scrolling frame that makes content scroll across the light ribbon. I might add more in the future, but for the 1.0 version, this is the most crucial type of frame, so I just included that. Inside of here, we have content. So content are things that you can put into frames or directly display on the light ribbon itself. And I have two main types. So I have graphic and then I have text. And then among text, I have text and large text. They work pretty much the same. Large text is just larger. So let's open up first the light ribbon manager script. And this is where you'll want to initialize all of your light ribbons. You don't need multiple of these files. You can initialize all the light ribbons from one script. And if you scroll down, you can see where I've initialized the light ribbon that's in this world. So I have right here this variable holding light ribbon, and I assign that to a new light ribbon, and it has three parameters. So first is the reference to where the light ribbon is in the workspace. So right here, I have wait for child light ribbon. This is just referring to this light ribbon in the workspace, which is right here. The next thing is the width multiplier, which is 4. For the default style of light ribbon that you'll get when you use my model, you'll always want this to be 4. But what this is doing is saying that it's stretched out by a factor of 4 on the horizontal axis since it's denser up and down than it is left to right. I think 4 is pretty good, like with the spacing I have, because if you add more pixels and make it denser, then it ends up taking more processing power. But if you were to make them spaced farther apart than it already is, it would be harder to visualize what's in between them. So like when you look at it, your brain kind of fills in all the missing details between the pixels and you're able to still see the image. But if you stretch it out too far, then it'll just become unclear. So going back here, the last parameter is an array, and what this holds are the layers. So the layers are just different things that are displayed on the light ribbon. So right now I only have one layer that's a scrolling frame, and within that scrolling frame I put the text Araketo360. So the first thing that you can do just to play around with it is put whatever text you want to hear. So I'm going to say hello world. And the other thing I'll do is change the background color. So I just have this function that you can call called set background color. So I take this light ribbon that we stored here, and then I say set background color and then put in some sort of color 3 value. I'm going to change this to black so that it has white text on a black background. Let's go ahead and run that and see how it looks. So as you can see, it says hello world scrolling across the screen, very similar to what was going on before. But let's make it a bit more interesting. I'm going to add another layer, or actually 2 layers to this to add the double spiral effect to it. You might have noticed it at the beginning, it sort of looks like a double helix sort of thing. And this effect takes 2 different layers because we're going to need it to wrap in front of the text and behind the text. So I'll go ahead and just copy this layer twice, like this, and then I'm inside of the scrolling frame, instead of putting in large text, I'm going to create a graphic. So you can do that by just saying graphic.new. And then inside of here, we need to put an image. A graphic is like a container for an image. So I have these images right here that are a special image file that I made for this project. And the graphics are what interprets those images. So if you want to say put any of these images on the light ribbon, you would then put it inside of a graphic and then put that on the light ribbon. So let's go ahead and take the spiral top right here, and I'm going to paste that in right here. So that's telling the graphic that it's going to use the spiral top file. And then for the bottom, I'm going to use the double spiral bottom. So this is the bottom layer of the double spiral. So I'll get rid of this argument right here, say graphic.new, and then double spiral bottom. And then the other thing I want to do is change the scrolling direction to make it go opposite the text. So I'm going to change this to a 1 and this to 1. So on the scrolling frame, these 2 arguments right here are the scroll direction. This is X. So positive X is to the right, negative X to the left. And then this is the Y scroll direction. So positive Y is up and negative Y is down. On the matrix, the top left is 1, 1. That's the index of that pixel. And then to the right is positive, and then down is positive. So back over to here, everything is in order. We got the top layer, which is the top part of the double spiral, the text, and then the bottom layer of the double spiral. So let's go ahead and run that and see how it looks. Very cool. So as you can see, the spiral kind of wraps around this hello world text. And one thing I'll do to make it just a little bit more clear, the sky is kind of bright, so I'm just going to put a part behind this so that it's a bit clearer for you to see. All right, so back over to the light ribbon manager. I'm going to show you one last thing. So with any of these graphics, you can put them into the scrolling frame as well as text. But if you don't want it to scroll, you could just set it to 0, 0, but you could also just put the graphic directly into the layer. And so I'll do so graphic.new, and then I'll put in, let's do the Paraiso Park logo. So that's the game I developed. I just put the logo from that for fun in there. So if I go ahead and run this, it will display over top of everything that we've put in there. And you can see that's just like the top corner of the icon. And it's not scrolling because it's not in a scrolling frame, but you can put the images directly in there if you'd like, directly into the layer. Also, I'd like to point out so that the closer to the 1 index that you put things in this array, the higher up they display. So you couldn't see anything below here because there's no transparency. So this just covered everything up. And also, the bigger you make your matrix, the slower it will render, but adding more layers doesn't have as much of an impact. So like if you add 2 layers, that's not like double the processing power because it only needs to step through each layer until it hits an opaque pixel. So if it has a pixel with any transparency, it'll keep moving through to get to an opaque pixel. But if it finds an opaque pixel up top, it'll just use that. So it's not having to like render like double the pixels necessarily if you have a transparent layer over top of an opaque layer or something like that. All right, so the next thing I'm going to show you is how you can customize the light ribbon itself. So right here is like the default light ribbon you'll get, but as you saw at the beginning, I did different like curves and things. The most important thing is that you just pay attention to the numbering. So the way I set this up is I have different sections of these bars or beams. and they're grouped in batches of 10. So you can see right here, if I just click through these, they're highlighting 10 batches at a time. I grouped the beams in batches of 10 because it'd be pretty unwieldy to number every beam individually. So you'd just have to make sure that they're numbered 1 through 10 inside of each batch of 10. You don't have to go through from like 1 to 20 to 30 and so on, because the numbers would start to get really big. So if you want to add to this, let's say just make it a bit longer. I'm going to duplicate this last batch and then move it over just like that. And then the last thing that you have to do is number this off. So since I already have 6, I'll make it 7 and make sure that it starts with 1. So 1 to 7. And the script will actually pick up these new batches automatically. So you don't have to worry about like changing any of the code to make it adjust for that. You can also rotate these. So how I did some like the curve things was I'd rotate the different pieces. I'll change that to 10-degree increments and then just move it over. I'm not going to go through and make like as complicated of a curve as I did, but I'll show you just that it's possible to do it. So go ahead and change this to 8 since I added another section. I'm also going to delete this line right here so that you can see the original text that we had below. So if we run this, you can see how the code picks up the changes automatically. So there it is. The text just kind of wraps around this curve. It looks pretty cool. So that wraps it up for this video. I'm excited to see what y'all will do with these light ribbons. If you do anything cool, be sure to mention me on Twitter and I can check out your tweet and see what you did. That's always pretty exciting to see people using this. And I also will possibly update this in the future. So maybe give this video a like and subscribe to get updates about what I do with this. Updates might include adding more graphics, since right now I just have a smaller library of graphics, maybe some new frames. I don't have anything planned at the moment, but if this gets enough popularity, then there's a better chance of me updating it. So stay tuned and I'll see you later. Goodbye.